If you get water into some of the electrical components, for example, this is the window actuator on the driver's side. They're designed so if water gets down here, it actually drains out these holes rather than actually going down into the electronics. But if they do get wet, my suggestion to you is to open them up and let them dry out. This is pretty typical of most of the components that are in the car. So there's just a bunch of screws that I've removed there. You pull that off, and then you have the circuit board underneath there. And then from there, there's generally going to be some sort of rubber covering that sits over the top of the actual circuit board. So that would have sat over there like that. And when it's sitting in the car, it's going to be sitting there like that with things being actuated. So as you can see, some of it is actually open and some of it's not. There are some that you find that are completely covered up by rubber, some of them aren't. And depending on how the actuator actually works, this is actually a combination. You can see there are micro switches down here, which you can test if you click them on and off. In addition to that, this one has for the windows these actuators, which are very similar to, or they're the same as what you'd have in your remote control for your stereo or your TV. And you've got these little pads here that have conductive material on them. And I had the problems where one of the windows just wouldn't actuate at all. So the first thing I do is just let these completely dry out if they've got any wetness on them. Especially these ones here, if they're not working properly, what you can do, because these, when you actuate the button, they just press out like that, is you can do that and then just get some very light wet and dry paper. Maybe I've used 1200 grit, just a very gentle wipe, just if there's any corrosion or garbage that's just built up on those, and then they immediately started to work perfectly again. To disassemble the button console, which is this one here, and it's going to be the same regardless the number of buttons that you have in your car. There are 6 screws like that around here. Just remove those. The cover just pops straight off, and then you've got the circuit board there. You can just grab hold of the pins and just gently lift that up. The rubber pad may or may not come up with it. That may just be sitting there like that. So there's all your things that are going to be pressed by the silver contacts there to make everything actuate, plus a bunch of LEDs to light everything up, and then you can just pull that off. When you're here, for example, if you wanted to put additional buttons in it, it looks like this is just a generic thing or circuit board for all of the possibilities of what could actually come on here, because you've obviously got contacts for all of them, and a lot of these are just blanked out, so clearly they just don't send anything to it. If you want to remove some of these blanks, you can actually just push those out. They're actually got little clips in here, but you can just gently just push those out if you need to, like that. I just slot this straight back in again. There are things that fall out here, and it's only for the center convertible buttons. You got those 2 little things that go in there. And you got these 2 things, which are the things that actually push, like lift up this way when you pull on the convertible buttons. There's a big and a small one. The big one goes up the top there, the small one there. And that's pretty much it. So if you want to clean all of this, because this gets full of years worth of gunk, etc., just pull those bits out so you don't lose them. And nothing's going to fall out of this. Then you can just go and, if there's no electronics or anything, unless you can immerse it in water, then blow it out with compressed air. And then putting it back together again is just the reverse of all of that. There we go. Then that goes over the top like that. Circuit board goes over the top. And then the cover goes over. I'll put those 6 screws back on. This is the air conditioning controller from a 981 or a 991. This one had been rained on, had crap all over it, so I thought I'd pull it apart and clean it up. Once I'm done, it actually just looks brand new. The display had a bunch of artifacts and stuff on it. It actually looks perfect now, and everything cleans up like it just came out of the factory, which is kind of nice. It's actually pretty simple to pull apart. There's a seal here on the outside. You can leave that on. You don't actually need to pull that apart or pull that off to pull it apart, but if you're going to clean it later on, you probably want to remove that. First thing you do, there are 4 screws around the outside, but they are a T5 torque, so we'll just remove those. Now when you get it like this, there's actually a circuit board in there and there's a circuit board that way. They're actually plugged into each other, but if you just gently pull it apart, it just pulls that plug out, and the plug itself is that one there going into that there. And because it's got guide pins and everything, you can easily just guide those together and just gently just push it back together again. So it's nicely designed to be able to pull apart. That one can just stay like that. If you want to actually remove that circuit board for whatever reason, there's just a single clip at the back here. You lift that up and then you can actually push that board out. But for most of it, it's on this side here. The 4 screws around the outside, they've already gone from the original ones you pulled out, and now there's just another half dozen that need to come out. And once you get those screws out, the circuit board will just easily lift off. What you'll see on the other side are a whole bunch of contactors. These are the things that actually press against these things here to actually make the buttons actually work. This is just a big rubber thing with all the buttons and everything on the other side of it. So there's no electronics on this side except for the screen just here, and the bit along there is the bit that contacts there, which is actually the bit for the actual screen. So that's the stuff that actually sends the signals for the screen itself. You can have a look at the board, clean that up if you need to. On this side here, with the rubber pad, gently pull that off. And once you've got that off, you can see just the other side here, the things that actually press the little the metal pads. Now, these will just push straight out and they're in sections. So there's the one up here, that one there, the middle one, that one there, and that one there. Don't just tip it over, because there are actually a lot of these pads that press on it. A lot of them are embedded into it, but there are 6 here on the rockers. So there's a rocker up the top here, and I'll just pull that one out. So that's the rocker for the temperature on that side. They've got these little plungers in them, okay? So don't lose those, because if you just tip it upside down, everything will just fall out. And there are 6 of those for the 3 rockers. So there's the one there for the temperature on one side, temperature on the other side, and the rocker for the fan in the middle. Those little ones there, make sure you pull those out and put those aside so you don't lose those plungers. And then there's no electronics in these, so you can just go ahead and put those in water and clean them up so they're like new. The ones here for the heat, etc. on the seats and a few other things. There's no electronics in here, but there's just this little lens thing, the white thing, that might actually pop out. That's for the LEDs. The LED lenses for these are actually embedded in the button, but this one here will actually come out. So if that falls out, you can just put that back in again. But again, they can just be pulled apart and cleaned. For the screen itself, and this is what I needed to clean up, because obviously this sits like that in the car, and if water gets in here, even though there's actually a rubber seal around this, this actually did get some water in it. It looked pretty rough, as well as having all the artifacts on it. So what you can do is actually, there's a clip that sort of just holds it in place. So you can actually just grab that and just pull that out. That's that clip there. It doesn't really clip on it, it just puts pressure on it to keep it in place. And then the whole screen and everything will actually lift out. Now, when I pulled this out originally, the actual screen here, which actually looks like that, there's the contactors that actually go down to the actual LCD display. There's a little backing thing. Now, I didn't take notice of which way this went, because there's a dull side and a shiny side. I put the shiny side down when I actually reinstalled it, and the thing looked beautiful, so I'm assuming that's the way it's supposed to go. But all I did, because this had just garbage all over the back and front of it, and I cleaned it up and it looked beautiful once I was done. Just be careful with this bit here, because this is obviously connected to the electronics for the thing, and any damage to that and suddenly your screen's not going to work very well. So the way I actually put this back together was to put that in there like that. There's actually a rubber seal inside there, make sure that's in the correct spot. Put that down, shiny side down on the little backing bit. That slots over the top. Then that goes down the side like that. So that just holds the screen in place. And then you can just go around and plonk all these back in. They can only go in one way, all of these. Once it's there like that, put those plungers in our rocker switches. Gently place our rubber thing over the top, which will stop things from falling out. Then this can go over the top. And then you can just line those pins up together and just gently push those together. Excuse all the gongs, I haven't got the PDK selector in at the moment, so it's giving me a whole bunch of noise. But as you can see, that screen actually looks better than it's ever looked. It looks better than in my other car, to be perfectly honest. It's just flawless. So everything is working. Some of this